go in there and make sure that I made this stream public. Hi guys, we're still really setting up here. So we're checking YouTube because I think that maybe I didn't do it right. Something's not quite right. Okay, we are public on YouTube. I just had to make sure because it's like 0 people there. I'm like, that's not like my channel. Hi YouTube and hi Patreon. And hi Lightworker613, and we have a beautiful spiritual teacher here with us today as a guest teacher. She's going to be co-teaching this event with me. I couldn't have picked a better person to do this class with me today. I have the lovely Robina Dhindsa from Ruckus Avenue Radio and from robinadhindsa.com, and I'm so excited.
Thank you. I'm so excited too. It's such an amazing topic, and I can't wait to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. So YouTube, this is the first time I brought you in publicly on one of my classes in a long time, so be good. And Patreon, as usual, ask your questions. We will have a 30-minute questionnaire for both YouTube and Patreon, but primarily we're focusing on Patreon questions today because they did pay for this class. And I will be looking at Patreon questions in the Ask a Question session in the final 30 minutes of the class. We have about an hour and a half that we can roll today before I have to get going. So it'll be a nice class. Foundations and applications of ethics in mediumship, channeling, and healing. This class is primarily for facilitators. If you've been a client of a healing facilitator or any of the psychic arts and you're questioning certain things about it, please feel free to talk to us and ask your questions. We're going to be going over a lot of topics about this, and Robina and I are incredibly excited. Where do you want to start? I can start in so many places, but let's let the guest teacher start.
No, it's such an amazing topic, and we can start in a lot of places, but I think the first place to start is the foundation. So the absolute core. And what is that? That is right here. That is right here. That is our vessel. So as someone who is a spiritual facilitator, and there's a lot of different words for it, and we can get to those later, a healing facilitator, any type of service that you're providing to other, the first thing to understand is that the information is traveling through you as the conduit, as the vessel. And if this vessel is not clear, so if you're holding on to some deep, disempowering core beliefs, and sometimes we don't even know they're there, and they're really buried deep, well, the information that's going to be passed through you for the other person is going to be filtered not through the heart, but through the mind and through the ego. So the layer is very dirty. So then the information ends up being not really for the greater good. It's going to be a little bit askewed. It's going to be a mixture of maybe your opinion, your advice, what you would do. And it's not really for not even the person's greater good, but the greater good. And I think that's also a really interesting point too, is guidance for the greater good, not just for the other person to be happy. It's for the greater good, understanding that you are that person, they are you, right? Going back to the oneness. But to go back a little bit on this vessel, Pamela and I were discussing earlier about how we clear our vessels, right? So it's not a matter of just doing a bunch of sessions in a row. It's having a really daily disciplined routine, and there's nothing like it. And I literally cannot go through a day without it. And it's not military. It's not, I have to do it. It's part of my life, like brushing my teeth. So, and for me, and we all have different ways, and there's not one way to do it. And there's no right way and there's no wrong way. There's so many different ways. And, you know, you can do yoga, you can do all sorts of things, but are you looking at those beliefs? So my heart and soul of everything that I talk about and teach has to do with those belief systems and those fears and clearing them. And so as we're assisting others on their journey, never forget to, you know, don't disregard this vessel. And, you know, some of the ways that I do it is, sorry, one sec. The ways I do it is Kundalini yoga, is chanting mantra. So Pamela and I are very big into that. Very important. Sound vibration, breath and sound. Those are the superpowers right there. Breath and sound, because before we even get to the other person, it's yourself, because everything is a mirror for what you feel, right? So what triggers you about when you're talking to your client, the types of clients that are invited to you. There's no randomness, right? There's no coincidences. Everyone is just resonating where you are. So, you know, that's where I want to start. It's you. So,
you know, and that goes back to, in yoga, we call that pratyahara. In New Age communities, you call it many things, from psychic hygiene to energy clearing. You know, in shamanism, you know, we always clear our space first. You know, there are various tools that we have for that. You know, so depending upon your belief system here today, if you're a shaman, you'll know what to do. You know, with the Palo Santo and the sage and, you know, various medicines that you use from Mother Earth for that type of clearing that's very sacred and ceremonial for you, and clearing that space. That's something that you do prior to working with your clients, and in between especially. You know, and but even before then, like when you wake up, when you get up in the morning, are your thoughts clear? And if they're not, if there is a thought there, is it really conducive to purity, innocence, and love? So innocence is an actual essence, and purity is that technology. We call it many things, but in the path of Kripa Yoga, which is my path primarily as a yogi, what we teach from this perspective is that purity means cleaning your thoughts and making sure that if there are thoughts there, again, that they are innocent. So in order to do that, you look at, you know, are your thoughts in any way judging? Are you looking at something as being like coloring your board? I use a lot of whiteboards when I teach. And sometimes if I have whiteboards that are full of like energy from other classes, I go in and wipe them all away and cleanse them. Your brain needs that too, as well as your body. So this is what Kundalini does, and this is what Kriyas do. This is what yoga does. This is what meditation does. This is your sadhana, your spiritual practice, breathing techniques, mindfulness, whatever it is that is a part of your spiritual practice, which in yoga we call sadhana. And it is just really trying to make this, you know, right now I've got class notes, but we want to get up and do this. So breath does that, and we start our day in that way before we even see any client. What do you see about your inner child within you? You know, so I like to start out the day in that way. Some people do that with positive affirmations. You know, I love a technique that I teach in my yoga. Is called the one technique, and we discuss it a lot, and it's really simple and easy for anyone to do. So what you do is breathe in and feel or imagine that breath coming in from the base of your spine, and let that inward breath, you know, inhale all the way up to the top of your head and exhale all the way back down. And when you reach this, when you inhale and the inhale breath reaches the top, at the top of your inhale breath, when you can't inhale any further, hold that breath for just a few seconds and say the word one in your mind only. If you open up your mouth, obviously you're breathing in a different way. So just say it in your mind 1 to 3 times, and then, you know, you're squeezing that breath around the brain, which takes away the crystallized components from food and toxins and emotional toxins that build up in your brain as well, any toxins, because you're squeezing your breath around the pineal gland. And when you do that, there's a lot of scientific research that indicates that that is a powerful technique to open you up to the mind of God within you. So the mind of God, in science we call that the Higgs boson, or the God particle. You know, and mystery school alchemy, we call it infinite light, or the infinite, There's many different words for the same thing. So you breathe in again from the base of your spine, hold the breath at the top of your head, retain the breath for a few seconds, and say the word one to 3 times, which is a reset. When you're counting, but you're not counting up or down, you're just counting, you're saying the word one over and over again, you're resetting and you're squeezing the breath. So again, that's decalcifying the pineal gland, resetting the brain from conditioned processes of fear and judgment. You know, all the thoughts of, you know, for me, it's, oh my God, I got to feed my annoying cat. That thought goes away. That happens to me first thing in the morning. So I don't start my day going, gosh, you know, I don't really like this cat today. It happens sometimes, guys, right? Seriously, if you've been in my household for any period of time, it's horrible sometimes with him. So then you exhale the breath back down, and then you say the word one upon the bottom of your breath. You do the same thing and retain the breath at the base of the spine. And that actually activates your kundalini. So then any practice that you're going to do from that point on in your day is going to be just, you're going to be open for it and ready for it. You know, so at that point in time, any chanting that you're going to do, if you do quiet meditation or self-inquiry, if you do kundalini, if you do your kriyas, you know, it's self-realization, fellowship people. If you do your kriyas, do this before your kriyas, and you will realize a big difference. So clearing the vessel and clearing the mind, you know, clearing the psychological and the physiological.
And I also think sometimes you wake up and you feel very ungrounded. And sometimes I also find if I do Kundalini yoga, sometimes it opens up my heart a little bit too much. And I feel a little bit, you know, a little bit unstable. So I really highly recommend a grounding practice too. And sometimes just in the morning as well. And there's so many easy ones to do. And I love the easy things. If it's really, really complicated, then, you know, it's not supposed to be so complicated. Practices are supposed to be very fluid, very easy. So one of them that was taught to me by a friend of mine, Rogelio, a shaman in Sedona, so easy. And I'm just going to demonstrate it real quick in case anyone resonates with this. It's a surefire way. It always works for me if I feel a little bit ungrounded. Hands up, and my palms are facing down. So, and my thumbs are pointed inwards. So you're not going to see it on the screen, but that's the way it is. And you're standing up. I really like doing it outside near a tree, especially, but if it's cold, if it's winter where I live, it's okay. You can do it inside. And you're quite literally pushing down the energy. You're pushing down the aura, and you're using your breath at the same time. So on the inhale, the exhale pushes down. The inhale, you start up, and you do that 5 or 6 times, and you visualize. So you're using breath, you're using visualization, and you're using the body, and you're visualizing everything that doesn't serve you, any energy that's a little bit imbalanced. You're going to visualize what that looks like, and all you're going to do is push it down. And I like doing it outside because you can invoke the help of the tree. So sometimes I use natural language whenever I connect. I don't do anything fancy. I literally ask the permission of the tree, because that's my practice. No matter what I do, I always ask permission of the tree. I ask permission of the client's higher self before I do a session. That's always just a nice little best practice. And I ask the tree for their assistance in this process. And then you work with them and imagine yourself being connected to the tree. Imagine the roots of the tree sort of connecting to your roots and merging as one. And so it's almost like you have this combination of your energy, and the tree's consciousness helping you, because we're not here to do it alone. And it doesn't matter if we're a teacher. It doesn't matter if we have this ability. It doesn't matter. We all need a team. We need guidance. We need support. We're not meant to do this alone. And a tree can provide just as much guidance and support as a friend could. So grounding, extremely, extremely important. Yeah,
I completely agree. You mentioned something earlier about accessing your discernment for the greater good. And I wanted to talk about the ego's role in that, the body's role in that, and your take on how to be aware of when we're operating in that greater good, and when and how we aren't. What's your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I always look to my body as my guidance system. So for me, it's my GPS. In particular, it's my stomach. It has never failed me. It will never fail me. But it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Because our stomach is like a second brain. That's
Yeah.
where serotonin is produced. Our mood is all happening there. And the solar plexus, there's the epicenter of pain, all this pain that we could be holding on to, anger that our liver is absorbing. There's so much going on here. And so when something feels not aligned, and I never use right, wrong, bad, good, that doesn't exist. It's aligned to love. And I want to use love. And I should talk a little bit more about it, but I always just say aligned, but I mean aligned to love or not. And that's okay. My stomach is going to tell me because it gives me a very specific, I think, am I sort of chopped off? Oh no, I'm back. Okay. But my stomach gives me that signal. And so if I'm doing a session or prior to doing a session and I have that feeling, I don't disregard it. I will never disregard anything that comes from my stomach because that's my signal saying something is a little bit off. And it could mean I'm ungrounded. It could mean the whatever I'm talking about, whatever guidance, whatever wisdom is flowing through me is perhaps my opinion. And that forces me to take a pause and look at it. Is it an advice that I'm giving, which is not what I want to do? And Pamela and I were speaking about that earlier. We don't want to give advice or take advice. Advice is of opinion, is of the mind, it's of the ego, right? And we have to always go back to having the clear vessel. Mm-hmm. So for me, the body is the signal. And sometimes, and for you guys, maybe it's the chest. Maybe sometimes you feel like a tightness on the chest and you know, oh, I'm not in alignment. And maybe you're dealing with a client and you feel that feeling. Could just mean that you absorbed whatever they're feeling. And okay, no problem. Lesson learned. Next time you'll ground. It just means that you didn't protect yourself with a shield or whatever your technique is. I like to sort of protect myself in a bubble of white light, do an invocation that whatever is, passing through us bounces right off. And I visualize it sort of like any of their negative beliefs, boom, it just bounces off. It's not going to go inside of me. So yeah, the body. And what about you, Pamela? Do you also feel like your body is kind of like gives you the signal?
Sometimes, and when I feel that a lot of channels and shamans, the brain, we have the brain that's in the heart, I call that the mind of God, that's in the heart, and that's my anahata. And we also have the brain that's in the solar plexus, which is incredibly somatic. And it will give your body intuitive response that is so physiological. You'll get suddenly chills. Sometimes people call those spirit bumps, when you're really following a clear guidance system. And I'd like to talk about the difference between what is clear guidance and what is advice. For one, that's just so that we know what we're looking for. So clear guidance, and here's how you can determine what clear guidance is. Number one, it doesn't have any association with judgment that would benefit you. It can, however, have progressive judgment, creative judgment that would benefit another person, and that judgment will feel good. It cannot have regressive judgment, and what regressive judgment is that you are doling out allegedly clear guidance. You're doling out advice, rather, that is going to basically put a person in a state of fear or worry, in a lower frequency like anger, irritation, anxiety, frustration, okay? When you're gonna put someone in that place as a teacher or a clear conduit channel or healer or a shaman, you better be well prepared that the guidance that follows is going to just as easily clear that emotion that you have catalyzed. So I told you that this was going to be an incredibly catalyzing class, and here is that point when it begins, that journey. So you have to be ethically responsible for the emotions that you as a channel, you as a healer, you as an empath, you as a shaman, you as a medium, that you evoke. You did that. And why do I say that you're responsible for that? You are a creator being. You are a star wrapped in skin. You are a God in form, choosing a creative, karmic, and eventually dharmic path, hopefully, right? So this is where we're going. And if you are God informed, if you are God, God is responsible for everything that God sees. Now, there's a difference between responsibility and accountability. Accountability means you get to take upon their suffering, their judgment, their pain, that they're feeling as your own, and that you're going to want to fix it. Okay, fixers. You're a healer, not a fixer. So we can go really, really deep with these terms and terminologies, but it's not for fixing. It's for owning and for clearing and for being responsible for both you, and you're pulling in responsibility for your client, or the person sitting before you. So what is clear guidance? You can tell that you're in clear guidance when you are minding your own business. There are 3 types of business. Your business, which, by the way, when you're in clear guidance, you're in your business. God's business, we'll get there. And then someone else's business. When you're in someone else's business, what you're doing is you're owning accountability for their suffering, their drama circles, their gossip, whatever it is that's coming in your direction. Your gut's going to tell you if you're in that, as Robina was discussing. And then your heart and your throat. Oh my goodness. 2 things that are connected to each other in the chakra systems that are imperative for guidance. It's going to start in the gut, because you have a body, and your body is your ultimate tool, and that's what you know. And then it's going to go to your heart. And then once the heart is clear with the guidance, then your heart is going to pull up into your throat. So if I am in a place where I'm not really feeling in clear guidance, I start kind of clearing my throat. I start giving my throat permission, but I don't speak. I'll cough, I'll clear my throat, I'll get a little choked up. I might feel like I'm stumbling over my words when I try to speak. Those are signs in the throat chakra that you're not in your clear guidance, and that you're about to give advice that is not in the greater good, as Robina was putting so clearly.
I also think a little bit further to that is also giving advice is when, when we're starting to speak in definites, in no, in yes, and that kind of stuff too, then that's also our signal that, okay, there's something that we are holding on to. So it has nothing to do with the other person. It's us. And kind of like what you said, and what we learn in the Kundalini path is that our voice also comes from here. So eventually we speak through our throat, yes, but our voice is here. And if our voice is clouded with our own self-judgment, and that's a judgment's a biggie. Judgment is a huge one. And that's something that I've spent a lot of maybe years clearing. And because I've cleared that judgment, it really reflects in my day-to-day life. It reflects in who I meet. It reflects in everything, because how I feel is all about, I'm mirroring everything, right? So it's so important that, we never speak in this won't happen, this will happen, because everything changes. It's only the now conditions where we're able to tap in and give, I will say, a best case probability based on the now conditions, based on the concordant records, that now records that we can tap into. But then everyone has the potential to awaken, don't they? Everyone does. So that client, even though they could be completely off the track today, who's to say tomorrow they won't completely shift? I did a few years ago. A few years ago, I had a session with Pamela, and I would never dream that I would be doing this today, but I shifted very quickly. When you get that awakening, that's it. You just 180-degree turn, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll notice that when you are too much in a client's business, okay, facilitators. So remember, going back to the 3 laws of that, you're in your business, God's business, or someone else's business. You're in the client's business, but primarily you want to be in their business just enough to get them in God's business. Okay, and you have to trust yourself to be in God's business. You really have to trust yourself to be in God's business. But how much of God's business can you actually ethically reside within during a reading, healing, shamanic journey, regression, etc.? That's where you're going to have to use these tools to trust your power from the gut instincts, to trust your body's physiological somatic tools and responses, To then trust the anahata. What are you feeling? Now, when I say feeling, there's a difference also between feeling and emotion. Okay, so emotions, those are the things that kind of go all over the place, like, oh, I feel good about that, and that gives me the nice little fresh unicorn feels, and I'm going to fly off into the sky with a fairy right now. Okay, great. However, is that really lasting and sticking? You know, that could really, if they say something else that gets you a little bit too much into their business, you could get a different feeling and a different emotion. So a feeling is a pure, God-driven essence of something that brings about a pure, clear thought, a pure, clear vision that isn't tainted by any judgments projected from you, whether that be a good judgment or a bad judgment. So what I mean by that is you're not going to be more of a storyteller in that instance. You're not going to say, you know what, you as a psychic or a channel or a medium, you're not going to say, yeah, I did that one time and I remember it turned out badly for me. You know, you don't even flash in that direction, really, at least not until after you give your clear guidance. It's okay to share your stories after you give your clear guidance, but even then, keep in mind, what reason as a channel, healer, or shaman are you sharing a story? You're pulling someone else into your environment. So it's really, really, Robina and I call this trauma bonding, and it really deserves a good portion of this time. So healers, channels, etc. When you're sharing your story, you got to make sure that you're not pulling them into your traumas and your suffering. Use your God-mind discernment when you are sharing a story. There are plenty of ways to tell a story where you connect to that person's essence in a way you're getting in their business and they're getting in your business and you're bonding, okay? But that's tricky. It could easily turn to this good point of, oh my God, that happened to me and it was so hard. And then the whole energy of the reading, healing, or regression has completely shifted.
That's true. And there has to be a healthy boundary, because it's not like you're talking to your friend. So if I was talking to Pamela one night and saying, oh my God, this happened to me, that's different. When you're speaking with a client, there must be that healthy boundary that you don't cross. And it's okay to bring in some personal stories or anecdotes that you overcame or for the greater good, but then you're going to sort of get them into that loop. And that loop is really hard to get out of, that trauma, that fear loop. And that goes with social media as well. It's very tempting to post on social media, especially when we're having a bad day. And you know, we do it innocently, and a lot of spiritual teachers have their own groups and that kind of thing, but we must be careful, because our innocent posts of something, you know, we just want to share, could be issues. I mean, we're human. It could be, I don't know, I've seen stuff about money issues, whatever they're going through, and they're posting it very innocently, but it triggers others. It triggers those fears from others, and they end up feeling, so I'm feeling sorry for you, I feel really bad for you. Someone else, you know, chimes in, and then you can't get out of that. And then you all of a sudden created a loop of this sort of disempowering fear, all sorts of fears. And like Pamela said, the trauma bonding, and trauma loves other trauma. And then you create this big consciousness of it. And that's what we're trying to step out of and look into and honor that. It's not bad. None of this is bad or good. It's just a matter of staying nice and on top of it. Really, really an observational view. But again, how do you get there? It's kind of what you said, Pamela. I really feel like our natural state is neutral. It isn't happy, it isn't sad, it isn't kind of okay, it isn't anything like that. Neutral, I'm going to use another word, joy, right? Joy is expansive, neutral is expansive, happy is spiky. Happy, when I say the word happy, it's unnatural, right? I don't believe that is natural to be happy. So how do we get to that neutral state? Well, you work on this. You use self-inquiry on a day-to-day basis. When something gets brought up, you look at it. To whom do these thoughts arise, right? What Pamela teaches, the teachings of Ramana Maharshi, self-inquiry. Who is that? Is that truth? Whatever is brought up, is that true? And if you said yes, that's okay. That's just your mind. No problem. Go deeper and keep on inquiring until you hear nothing. Until there's complete silence, then you know, it's okay. And then
And then
you go
it
back.
doesn't even matter anymore, right?
It doesn't. It
Yeah.
kind of magically fades. And the beauty of that is that you didn't need anyone to do it. You just did it by yourself. Like, you didn't need to call anyone. You didn't need to trauma bond. And guess what? You didn't need to post. You didn't need to post and say, I'm having the worst day of my life. This is what happened. I have no money. Oh my God.
And come help me. The word help. Oh my goodness. When I hear that, you know, when a spiritual teacher, and this is kind of one of these things when you can tell that if a teacher that you're following, a master that you're going to, is really in their clear guidance system and really in their dharma, they do not say, let me help you in a powerless way. They may say it in a way that brings you into your power, but when someone comes to me, particularly psychics and channels, guys, I'm just going to give you a good old fat call out right now, okay? So how many of you have come to me, Pamela, I have a message for you. It's not my ego. It's a real pure, I have a real channel message. I'm really, and then it's followed by, it's because I'm worried about you. Let me help you. I automatically go, huh, I really, that was completely unsolicited advice. I didn't ask for it. I'm not here to advise you. Advice is when you're giving out and projecting a judgment that the person didn't even ask for. So here's Ethics 101 in psychics channeling, and for psychics channeling and mediums. Do not give unsolicited advice. If it is not asked, why are you giving it? And the only exception to that is a very well-trained master or guru, and they're not giving advice again, they're giving clear guidance. It's very rare. If a guru comes to you and says, I had a dream about you, please listen. Because they're not going to say, I had a dream about you and I helped you and I did this for you and I did that for you. Therefore, I am now your guru, not a true guru.
Absolutely. Okay. The word help is it's such a heavy word. It's so disempowering. And it also implies that there's something that's wrong. There's something that you know, that it's kind of like the word healer, right? And I know a lot of people, they put healer in the title, but also the word healer is implying that you need to be fixed, right? Yeah. So we have to really be careful of these words. And sometimes it's innocently used, and sometimes it's, you know, it depends on your intention, of course. So it's not an all or nothing thing that I'm talking about, but the language that we use is really, really important, because I also get that too, but I just want to help you, but I didn't ask. It never, and I also don't think I need to be helped. I don't think anybody needs to be helped, to be perfectly honest. Do they need to be nudged onto their soul's path? Yeah, I love that. I like nudging people along, but I don't help people.
Yeah. What you do is pull them into their own clear guidance systems.
Yes, I want them to know that you can do the same thing that I can do. If I can do it, you can do it too. And there's nothing special about me. Yeah. The same special in me is in you too. So, yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. Someone on YouTube chat said that she feels like a lot of people perceive ethics and moral standards from an egoic perspective. So this isn't about standards for expectation purposes. This is about whether or not you, as a channel, medium, shaman, healer, whatever you call yourself as a healing facilitator, whether or not you are in pure, innocent connection to the alleged other being. Because they are you. So let's talk about the universal law of reflection in this. They are you and you are they. So everything that they're saying is relating to you personally and spiritually on all levels, and everything that you're saying should be something that really relates to them. Does this mean that they're going to eat up your information and just love it and feel good about it? Quite frankly, not always. I find that really pure channels and mediums and psychics are catalyzing in nature, and that we give it clear guidance that is going to awaken something in you, and sometimes you're ready for that and sometimes you're not. So this isn't about are you allowed to tell a client this or that, although we'll get into that a little bit. It's mostly about, is what you're saying pure, clear advice that's, and even I don't want to use that word anymore. Are you giving them pure, clear guidance? Is it innocence, and is it bring them back to their situation and their feelings as innocent? Can what you say cause a person to understand their question is innocent, the person involved in the question is innocent, their circumstance is innocent, and all the people involved is innocent? Can you give potentials? You know, you can give time frames, okay, but can you give potentials of the time frame based upon where their energy is in the now, and make it ethically clear that that is a potential, and here is how it can shift? Or are you willing to follow their creative path of how it could possibly shift in directions that would help them be prepared for? You know, you're just giving potentials of creative direction when you give time frames. That's when time frames can become very accurate and can be powerful tools. When you guys come back to me all the time and you're like, you're really good at time frames. You told me the person still isn't going to be there for a year and they're still not. I'm like, actually, I'm good at when someone's so far aligned from a potential that I can tell you that it's a not. And that doesn't make me good at time frames. That makes me good at divine wisdom and showing where you are energetically and what you're aligned to and what you're not.
And at the end of the day, no one knows more than you. So we must filter even everything that we say to the client. That client must filter it through their own truth. Does that make sense for them? Yeah. Because nobody is God, right? And we're just a vessel for information, but could sometimes that information be a little bit up to interpretation? Yeah, it's possible. Every single thing is possible. So it's really important also, even on a day-to-day basis, to filter everything through one's own truth. That's the only truth that matters, you know? And so, yeah.
Well, and then just the idea that you're giving someone information about a potential, and now they know that information, thereby they're changing their thoughts, their feelings, their speech, their behaviors, and thereby their actions, which means, by the way, depending upon how quickly they assimilate that download of information that you just shared with them, and if it is advice or clear guidance, their direction could spiral downward very quickly or spiral upward very quickly. So this is how you can tell when you sit with a pure clear conduit channel, a healer that's really in their oneness. A very clear shaman is when you sit with them and suddenly, like, you feel activated, you feel good. And even if you didn't feel good, you do shortly thereafter in the session within the next 24 hours, and you start to see, even if your life peels away, even if karmic implications happen because you have new information and things get hard, you will also see how things clear from your path very fast, and or you begin to feel good very fast. Some changes happen right away very fast. Yep. So I had a client come to me today and he was like, I've had this problem neurologically in my feet for a while. I don't feel it today. And it's right after I sat with you. I'm like, I tried to activate you and that naturally happens, but you also had new information. Like I didn't have time to tell him that in that email, but he had a new download of information that he could use and he felt empowered and the body responded really, really quickly. So this is the power of a good healing facilitator, is that you're not owning that as a healer. Like, okay, yes, I did set some intentions for an activation. However, you have to be ready to receive that activation. I love the word activation as opposed to healing. How do you feel about the word healer, healing, all that? Like, what's your take on that?
Oh, completely. I love the word activation because healer, I don't call myself a healer. I try to avoid that word because it's funny that you were saying that, because I was thinking of a dream I had maybe 3-4 nights ago. And I work a lot in my dream state. I get some of the most clearest insights, and I'm able to get some information from my guides in my dream state. So in this dream state, in this dream that I had a few days ago, I was shown that it's during my sessions, it's not necessarily what happens there. There's so much happening behind the scenes. And sometimes that activation can take place right after one session. Even the sessions that I feel, I don't know, was that good? Were they helped? Oh, I hope I said, because my mind sometimes works a little overtime too. Did I say enough things? Are they going to be okay? I end up caring and all of that stuff. But this dream, I was shown that it happens, and it happens almost right away. And so it's really that. It's an activation that we are conveying. And one of the most powerful things that I've also found during the sessions is the power of the space of non-judgment. Imagine talking to someone and them absolutely forming no judgment to you, absolutely no judgment. And I feel like a lot of clients are helped just simply because of that, just to be in the presence of you all who don't have judgment on themselves, because that's where it starts.
Mm-hmm.
So because I've obsessively worked on myself and shoveled away that judgment to self, little bit of self-hate, very hard on myself, those kind of things are self-judgment, really clearing that stuff out, I'm able to really be such a just a space of complete openness, non-judgment, almost like a mother, but some mothers judge, right? So I'm saying a non-judgmental
Divine mother. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that's a superpower right there, you know. So beyond the messages that you give them from whoever has crossed over or whatever intuitiveness, sometimes I don't even talk sometimes. It's just them, the client speaking, because it's almost like everything is just being thrown and I'm filtering it right up. Going through me and then filtering right up to source and just being transmuted into just pure love, you know?
Yeah, I find that too. Some of my first sessions that people have with me, they'll come back later and they're like, I talked a lot in my first session with you, and you gave something to me that activated me, but there wasn't a lot of ego information or answers to my questions. And I'm like, that's because you talked the whole time.
I know.
Because they needed to clear something about judgments for themselves. And what I was saying was just guiding them back to themselves, and they wanted a reading, but what they really needed was an activation and a clearing of something that related to release of judgment for themselves. And later they'll come back and say, okay, now I'm actually ready, and I'm clear, and I've written down clear questions for my reading, you know, and now I'm ready. You know, I've had some activations and I've sat with that first reading, and now I'm ready. So sometimes that happens a lot as well, that you can't sit before a pure channel. You know, you can't sit before a very clear master, teacher, or healer, or shaman, and without wanting to cry, without wanting to really release. Some people sit before me and they don't even say anything. Like, we get on Zoom, you know, or they come to my office in person, and they just sit there and stare at me, and tears start happening. And I say nothing. I just let it happen. So these are some of the teachings that happen with, you know, my master, you know, Sri Ramana Maharshi. He called them silent teachings. Okay, so your ego is going to go later and look at your recording and your reading and say, nothing happened. They didn't give me any answers when. But your heart is going to say, oh my goodness, the biggest clearing happened. The biggest purging, the biggest release, the biggest thing in my life happened, you know, and sometimes that has to happen, you know, before you get ready for anything else. And a lot of people sit before me and they'll say, you know, I come with a lot of questions. Students are going to feel me on this one, because they do that. I came with a ton of questions, and everything you said just cleared it, and I have nothing to ask now, and we still have 30 minutes left. And I'm like, yeah, that happens. Let's go deeper. So these are things that happen that you'll notice as well. If you're crying, you need to clear. You know, it's okay that you didn't get your list answered, that you didn't get the things that you wanted, that your ego thought was most important answered. Come back for that. It's not your teacher or psychic or channel's fault. They were guided purely, and they were following you. Okay, because what are we to do in that instance? Step forth and be like, you know what, you need to stop crying, because you got 20 minutes on the clock with me, and I know you're going to ask for a refund if I don't answer all your questions. That used to be me, by the way. That used to be me. I would be like, oh my God, they're crying, and what they need is a shamanic journey, but what they paid for is a reading, and we only have 30 minutes. Oh my God. New readers. That was me like 20 years ago when I first started. You know, and it's just like, oh my God, I know they're going to come back to me and say they didn't get a chance, that they didn't get information. And I'm like, I'm not sorry. That something needed to happen for your greater good in this session. And there was money well worth spent.
Yeah. And do you also get some clients who say that you appear to them in dreams? Because I get that too. So,
yes.
Right. So fine, maybe we didn't say much in the session, and they did a lot of talking or crying, but there's a lot happening behind the scenes, and we mustn't discount that or feel bad that, oh God, was that session good or was that session bad? That's what I always go back to. But yeah, it's yet to be that a session wasn't helpful for the other person. But it's also very important to not attach ourselves. So when the session is over, it's not that the person disappears, but it kind of is like it's very important to cut that cord, to release that person, to make sure that they don't stick with you. You're to not carry them through your day, because if that is the case, well, it's going to be a very clouded vessel, you know?
Yeah. Well, I find that my higher self definitely in her God mind has agendas of her own, if you will. So a lot of people come afterwards and they're like, the session didn't end. I went and I meditated and you were there, and then I had a dream that night and you were there. And then a month later you came back and you gave me some other advice to a question that I didn't get a chance to answer. You know, so those things happen. However, one thing that I want to note about these kind of things, about attachment and detachment, your psychic, your channel, your healer, your shaman, your past life regressionist, you know, your facilitator is not your friend. They're not there for that. That's when the waters get muddy, when so many people say to me, Pamela, I get this a lot. I just want more connection with you. I want more personal time. I want you to answer my emails. I want to be able to text you when I want to be able to text you. You know, local people, you guys are like, I want to meet you for coffee and have a full-on conversation. Not that I don't want that, because I do. Oh my goodness, I do. More than anything. I'm a very social person. So my heart's expansive and huge. And if it were like really powerfully good for me, I would have 1,000 friends. But currently I have probably a small circle of about 5 close friends. And then you have your outer circles. So aside from that, both clients and teachers, you know, and psychics need to be aware of not muddying the waters in that situation. You know, it's really, really easy to do. You know, those are really, you know, I'm pretty strict about that. Really, really strict about that. So if a client has been my student even, it's a little bit hard for me to go into a friendship thereafter even. And going into a relationship, even harder. Last 2 relationships, the first thing I did when I realized that it was going in that way, and those people were like one of them was a deep student and the other one was kind of like barely a student. First thing I did was cut the barely student off and say, I cannot mentor you any further. Here are the end of our sessions. You know, here's your final one. So there's that as well. So those are professional boundaries that no, I cannot answer your emails and become your friend in a personal way. That's one of the things that when you were my student, you were like, can I email you? And what did I say?
I know. And you were very to the point. And you said, yes, if it's 1 sentence max, and that you may or may not answer it. I'm like, what's going on here? And it triggered me. I was like, oh my God, why is she so severe? You know, but then I realized, oh, okay, gotcha. And then later on, when we became friends, obviously it's different, but it makes complete sense. If you were to do that with everyone, well, you wouldn't be able to work. You would just respond to messages all day. And so you have to sort of be almost a little bit, I wouldn't say severe, but to the point. And I'm a little blunt too, so I completely get it. And I do the same thing now too. You know, I managed to respond to a lot of people, but my problem is every time I respond, then they think it's something. They think, oh, we're friends now and she likes me, for me, it doesn't mean anything. I'm just really nice and I love connection. I'm like you, I love connecting, you know?
Oh, I get that too. I get people flirting with me, like straight up, we have a past life connection and it is a romantic connection. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't even say a word. What are you talking about?
Or you're my twin flame, or you're my whatever. And it's nice. And I'm not discounting and saying what they're feeling is wrong, but I just observe it. I observe it. I don't get mad about it. I don't get triggered by it. I have an amazing question to ask everyone. And this is such a great topic also, and it really ties into the ethics part. It's that spiritual competition, I'll call it that. Being happy for others, for other spiritual facilitators, healing facilitators, whatever you want to call it. I just find like there's a lot of competitiveness between each other. And there's very few wishing that the other person really did well, because they're seeing it as, wait a minute, but you're taking all the clients. Oh, what you said wasn't really right. Like, do you find yourself, all of you out there, correcting and saying, oh, Well, I knew that. That's so basic. That's like spirituality 101. I knew that at 5 years old, right? And you know, the competition of I know more than you. And that's I feel it's alive and well because I see it all the time. I see it all the time. It's, you know, and again, it's something to observe. And if it does trigger us, then whoa, what's going on inside? Again, it's an opportunity. But you know, to support each other and understand that there's no such thing as competition. It's only when that money is involved. It's only when a little bit of that greed, the lack, there's not enough for everyone. There's not enough clients for everyone. There's not enough money to go around. Ooh, where did that belief come from? Right? So there's something to go and dig out so that we could genuinely be happy for all others who are doing maybe the same thing we're all doing. Maybe there's not much of a difference, but doesn't matter. We all have that unique gift. Every single person has something different. So there's someone, a client to resonate with everybody. There's no shortage, you know? But I think competition is just, so do you see that a lot too, Pamela? Like good old spiritual competition?
It is almost as if the spiritual industry has become a complete commercial sellout. Just putting it frankly.
Yeah.
You know, you go to someone's website, and not that there's anything wrong with marketing and funnels and you know, ways to market yourself, but it has become a machine. And I just find that when I connect to someone, you know, it's there's nothing wrong with guiding them in with a funnel and an email, but you know, are you really inundating them with things that are like to inundate someone with something over and over again? That's something I sat with the marketing team recently, and they're like, you need to send like daily emails to your clients. And I'm like, when I see a daily email from anybody, I don't care like who it is, you know, in the industry and how powerful they are, if they are flooding my inbox, you know what I'm about to say, they go mark spam immediately.
Yeah.
I don't want to be spammed. So there's the ethics of marketing involved in this, teachers, mediums, channels. Now, you know, of course your clients want to hear from you, and they want to hear something that's relevant and sacred to all of them, okay? And, you know, if you want to plug your program, okay, great, but keep it ethical and don't plug people, for goodness sake.
While remaining authentic, whatever you are. And that means, and obviously, you know, we all go on Instagram and we all see, I mean, beautiful Instagram pages, right? With beautiful marketing pictures, beautiful outfits and all of that stuff. But it's smoke and mirrors. It's a lot of it is just a big illusion. It doesn't mean that that person doesn't have a clue. It doesn't mean the person isn't conveying a beautiful message, but we're in that era, in entering 2020, it's all about authenticity, realness, understanding that we don't need to look anything other than what feels right for us. We don't need to be overly sexy,
Yes.
Perfect. You know, look at my Instagram. It's a bit of a mess, but I don't care. You know, I do a video. It's the font. I've been accused of like, the font is not the same. Who cares? I don't want to be perfect. I don't want to, because I'm not. And if I portray something other than I'm not, other than I am, then it's not going to be authentic to me. And you and I were discussing this earlier on another day that, you know, we all know when something doesn't feel right for us and it doesn't align with truth. And I can't live with myself knowing that I'm doing something that's just not aligned to me. So
myself other than what I actually am experiencing, and my feelings and my body and my thoughts and the way I live my life. This is when become walk your walk, not just talk your talk, becomes incredibly effective in ethics.
Absolutely. And nothing needs to be perfect. It doesn't matter if your videos are not professional. It doesn't matter if you don't understand like graphics and that kind of thing. It's not about that. It's about the message that comes across. It's about your unique message, and everyone's message is unique. There is a different flavor that we all put. Why? Because it's all based on experience. We teach based on experience, and everyone's experience is different.
Yeah,
you know?
True. And we're looking for a creative, realistic, experiential way of learning spirituality. We're looking for something relatable. You know, and my assistant and I were talking about this earlier, and I was like, hey, And I was getting incredibly funny in my judgment about it, but I was definitely judging. So I'll share my fun judgment. I was just observing like yoga pics, you know, when people like are all like perfect and they're like, look at the sun's coming through. JP Sears makes fun of this actually. A lot of he's like, look at my yoga pics. The sun came perfectly through, you know, and through, you know, when I was doing my warrior too and whatever. And I had my mudra and the sunset was coming through and my makeup was perfect and the flower was in my hair. And you see people like going to the reefs in the ocean and they have just a little bit of ocean dew on their face. And I'm like, has anybody been near those reefs in the ocean lately and gotten knocked off about 8 times, gotten scarred up, you know, probably got cut because you shouldn't be out there, you know?
But what about just meditation pictures? What about just your classic? Yeah. If your eyes are closed, well, it's fake. It's not really real. You're not really meditating. Yeah. It doesn't bug me, but it bugs me in a cute way because I know it's not real. And you're trying to make it look like, you know, you're meditating, but you're not. So again, with the authenticity, it's not real, you know?
Yeah, and then I get real quick and put on the makeup and they're all right, namaste, real fast. You know, nothing wrong. That is beautiful. And I think it's very creative, yet simultaneously, what I'd really love to see is meditation pictures when you're just sitting there in your bed, you know, in your Star Wars pajamas. That's a legit example, people.
Right.
You know, and different things like that. You know, what I would like to see a mom in her rollers, you know, breastfeeding her baby. You know, I would like to see, you know, that kind of thing, like real meditation. You know,
that's it, and that's what people are drawn to: realness, experience, and relatability. So I'm like that too. I don't. It's not that I don't care what someone thinks who looks absolutely perfect, but I think, I don't know, I'm more sort of inclined to listen to someone who appears more relatable, not physically. They don't have to be good looking or not. It's just that energy. You can hear it in the voice. I think the resonance in the voice tells me a lot, and I think probably a lot of you are resonant beings too. Voice sounds really affect me, and I can often feel truth and not truth just based on voice. And so yeah, and like someone mentioned, I do that too. I meditate and do most things in pajamas or mismatched stuff and whatever. You know?
Yeah, it's really important. I tell people this all the time. Like, I may look professional on top and I have like this nice pure white shirt, but I have some wild pants on right now. Straight up, you want to see them? Yeah, these are my pants that I wear every day. You guys,
oh, they're cute.
Yeah, these are my fancy pants, I call them, and they are from LuLaRoe. So I buy them off local moms, and they're like really snazzy, and they're comfortable. Like, you'll never really see me in anything professional on the bottom half of my body, and that's for realistic comfort.
Yeah, it's the same with me, because all my videos are from here onwards, and then I have like the yoga pants or sometimes pajama bottoms. Like,
yeah, I don't do that when I'm sick, but perhaps I should. Yeah, I was thinking about it. Sometimes I think about things like that. I remember once in a class I had on these penguin pajamas, and I had on this like nice fancy shirt up here, but there was penguin pajamas. Not a shame. No shame, people. So, speaking of shame, Robina and I are going to be teaching a class about shame coming up soon, and we're going to give like a brief overview, just a little brief, kind of a preview of the class coming up public on YouTube, not this Saturday, but next Saturday. So I'll be posting the time, you know, in my YouTube community and everywhere. We have to decide about the time yet, but we'll be posting the time of that brief class coming up really soon. Are you excited about that? I am.
I'm so excited about it. And shame is one of those heavy, dense core beliefs. And I come from a little bit of a different perspective because I've been in the corporate world for so many years before I shifted over to teaching. And so I have seen it. I've seen it all over the place in so many different experiences. But what I never realized was that shame only presents if you're holding on to it, right? And there's a lot of different conditions, but now I understand that I was holding on to this low frequency. And so Pamela and I were going to go into shame and how it presents itself, how it invites, how to clear it, How do you clear it? How do you even know it's there? So it's a very, very important topic.
Yeah. And because no matter what you're doing, in your life, and Robina and I teach a lot, for people and standard just corporate jobs, and they aren't healers or shamans yet, and not even sure if they want to be, or perhaps if they do, it's just a curiosity, but we teach a lot, to people who are just beginning to wake up and understanding how this powerful thing, that shame is an incredibly powerful frequency that can prevent abundance. It can prevent career success. It can prevent self-love. It can prevent accessibility to self-worth. So we're going to be talking about that at a pretty basic level, but just how to recognize when you're in shame, when you're shaming someone else. That has to do with judgment, and whether or not that judgment is helpful depends largely on if you're in shame or if you're provoking someone to be in shame. So we're really looking forward to that class as well.
Absolutely. And it really goes back to what we started talking about. It's being very, very aware of this vessel. And I hate to use the word work, because work sounds like such a pain in the butt to do, but it's that daily work. And it hasn't been, easy, and it has been very messy, for me, at least, to really dig down. And I still do it. It's not that I'm finished and now I can just, meditate and go upon my way, because as soon as I'm triggered, that means something's there. The minute I feel anything other than neutral, it's an opportunity to go deeper. And I look at it as an opportunity. It's such a gift to be able to be triggered. It's really a gift. It really is. And so shame and other, disempowering beliefs and everything that we're holding on to, sometimes we've carried it into this life. Sometimes it's been with us for many, many lifetimes. It's, it's birth. We're going to talk about how it even took birth. And it's a fascinating topic. And more importantly, we're going to talk about how to clear it. What do you do?
Yeah, and give simple techniques that anyone in any stage of awakening can use for yourself, and that you can teach others as well. Simple techniques to clear it and just return, like a reset back to center really fast, because we need that. Work is stressful. Life is stressful. Whether you work or not, busy mom. I'm a busy mom of 4, and I have these moments where my kids just make me go. Get that look on my face, like the confused puppy dog in the memes. I'm like, so it used to be a different reaction. It used to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe the kid just said this or did this. And now it's just my reaction is like, oh, look at that reflection. Instead of automatic shame, I'm a terrible parent. From the parental perspective, it's really helpful for me, because the majority of my life and the shame and how it displayed in my life was centered around parenting, and how the world teaches us to parent. And it's how the world teaches us to parent is primarily engulfed in shame. It's completely conditioned from, you are a bad parent if you don't do this, you're a bad parent, and it was like there in this not just a whisper, but a yell in my head and in my background in every single decision of, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, so as a single parent of 4, it was just really, especially when the kid's dad passed, it was like, oh my goodness, I've got this all alone now. Quite frankly, not that I didn't prior to then, to be authentic about it, but I really do now, whether I like it or not. And I better make, really great decisions, because I'm not a parent, I'm not. So that came up as well for me. That was my experience with shame.
Yeah. My experience with shame really came in a few places, but primarily at work. I was in these corporate sales executive roles, and all those moments that I felt dishonored, not valued, embarrassed, humiliated, right? I wasn't like everyone else. Why can't you be like everyone else? So it's not really the corporate world. It's anywhere that there are people. It could happen at home. It could happen in any type of setting, anywhere. So it's something that's heavy. And on my radio show, Pamela was a guest, and you spoke about I'm going to use the word dangers of holding on to shame in terms of potentially breeding cancers. Shame is, you were saying, it's one of the breeding grounds, of
the foundation. Yeah, shame and guilt are the two foundations of bitterness, hatred, self-loathing, grief, and resentment, all of which are the primary feeling frequencies and energy signatures for cancer to develop physically in your body. So if it's there at any level, cancer can come or come back. That's not fear-based, that's not woo-woo, that's true. And that's over the case of the past 22 years of study as a medical medium in this lifetime. I find that I wrote down the beliefs and emotions associated with certain types of cancers, and those were at the bottom of everything.
Wow. It's amazing because a lot of people say, oh no, but that person, she was such a good person and she was just, you know, she helped so many people. Why is it that the good people get cancer? Because a lot of those good people are definitely good and they've done a lot, but they disregarded themselves and they're holding on to a lot of self-hate. So therefore, because I hate myself so much, I'm going to overdo it and be so nice to everyone else. I'm going to live a life that's completely external and just do everything for everyone, but let's disregard me. But what's lurking in there is this heavy, heavy, dark regret, shame, hate, self-hate, fear. It's it's really one, and so I'm excited that this is the one that we're going to start off with, because it's a heavy one, but it's one of the, if you can clear this one, then you'll even feel lighter. You know, it's one of those really important ones.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do you believe we're ready to take people's questions both on YouTube and Patreon now, or?
Yeah, let's do it.
Super. Let's look at the Patreon. Ask a question. Yeah. Oh, and it was a question about the one technique and from David, and he said, I've only been saying and thinking the word one after the outward breath. Has it always been after the inward breath too? Yes, it has. You breathe in, restrict the breath and hold it. Here, say one to 3 times. Exhale, hold it at the base of the spine and say one to 3 times again. That is the correct way to use the one technique in my Kripa Yoga. So that'll definitely reset shame fast, because you can't, when you're resetting your brain using oneness techniques, you're going back to oneness, and shame isn't a part of oneness. So it has to go away. And the next time you breathe again, you reset again. So next question. From Oana, I had read that some yogis do fire breath after in order to clear all the karma and attachment from sessions with others. Do you recommend specific techniques as fire breath? I'd say yes. You know, I know Robina is a Kundalini yogi as well. What do you think?
I think that's a great technique. I've actually never used it for that. Now I'm thinking about it. I'm going to say that's one of the most powerful breath exercises. Not the easiest one to do, fire breath, especially when you're doing it with different postures and all of that stuff. But that's a really great idea. And always remember to ground too, because fire breath can get everything's kind of going. So it's important to ground that energy too.
Yeah, I agree. Next question. Does it ever happen that some clients influence your life without wanting necessarily to open that Pandora's box and go into that, quote, timeline? Because she doesn't know a better term, she says. Are there techniques that would work a bit for clearing, even if it requires much more work than just a simple technique? I'm not sure what you're asking. I'm having a lot of difficulty with that question. But I can say that the simple, the better. Because a lot of times the ego can come in and say, you need a deep shamanic journey. You need a vast technique that's going to take 2 hours worth of meditation, because that's some heavy clearing. And yeah, if you want those, you ask for them. So I gave them to you in my Kripa Yoga classes, which are on tier 2 of patreon.com/Pamela Aaralyn. But yeah, I don't know. I don't feel that we always need those deep techniques. We just think that we do. Like, what if we could start with a simple one? And if your ego doesn't let it work, then go to the deeper ones. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's interesting because I used to be all about techniques personally. But then you sort of reach a point where it's not that you don't need it anymore, but I just sort of, it's as it comes, right? So it's okay, but honestly, no one needs any techniques, do they? If they just snap into the realization of who they really are. But the techniques are supposed to get you there. And then eventually you don't really need them. You
Yeah.
can just be,
Mhm.
and you can just use your breath, and you can just use mantra or whatever it is. So yeah, I mean, but they have their place, and it's necessary also to get rid of and clear those beliefs or anything that's sort of trapped into your body. And so
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm. So what a person is asking about how to get a session, as you asked, can we, what would be best? Do we just go ahead and book it? And I'm like, well, if that's what you feel that you want. Robina, how can they book a session with you?
Just on my website, robinadhindsa.com. I don't know if there's a link somewhere, but we can put a link. Yeah, robinadhindsa.com, and you can book right on there.
Yeah, and same here, PamelaAaralyn.com. If you're a patron right now, you'll get a 22% discount code. So keep that in mind as well. So that's, just ways if you want it, that's how to do it. Can we ask you? Someone said ... Okay, sure, I'm listening. And then there were no questions, but then she could have must have cut her off. That's funny. Yeah, it's LinkedIn, YouTube chat, and on Crowdcast chat right now, robinadhindsa.com. In what ways do you both clear or reset at the end of the day if you do so? Is the next question. I'll let you start.
Yeah, what a great question, because the state at which I go to sleep, I'm very, very aware of it. I make sure that I do little techniques. Now, I always even have this right next to me. Good old sage. I always have a lighter. And then I don't stop there, because I love this stuff. And I have a little guy of Palo Santo left. And then I have a frankincense stick.
Oh, you do that. Yeah.
Love. And I love sage. I don't do it every day, but sometimes I do. But frankly, it's more my intention than anything else. Again, these are tools for me. And it's because I like the smell. I do believe in it, but I frankly don't need anything. I don't need a crystal. I don't need anything. When I'm in bed and when I'm lying down, right before I go to sleep, and actually I learned some techniques of this from Pamela, I think from one of your classes too, about the dream state also, and doing a special invocation. So before I do that invocation, I just bring in the light with my breath. So on my inhale, I inhale a white light at the top of my crown, and I take it through, and I visualize it as kind of a bucket of liquid light. So everything inside gets coated, and it's my breath doing it. Yeah. And so anything that I'm holding on to, or someone said something in the day and it's all being pushed out with that surge of liquid light all the way down, and that gets pulled out through the base of my feet. And it happens quickly. So then my inhale, boom, it goes back out. Any residue, boom, it goes right out. And it's just my breath that's doing it. There is nothing fancy going on. And then I set an invocation, and I always use the same thing. My tried and tested ways that are good for me is invoking the I am. Love it. And I invoke the I am within me to connect to my higher self and my guides. I ask for your assistance and guidance with anything that I'm curious about, anything that I'm worried about, anything. I ask that you show it to me in my dream and in a way that will make sense to me. That's it. And I make no demands and expectations. And then the magic word, thank you, because I don't expect anyone to do anything for me, right? Not my guides, not anyone. Thank you. And then I always like to put an extra little effort, and I say, it is done 3 times. I love 3 times. It is done. It is done. It is done. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I do this when I'm super tired. When I'm ready to go to sleep is when you want to do this, or else then this starts working. So you want to just do that. So that's what I do.
Yeah, you're in the hypnagogic space, so it's really good as you're going from different levels of your brain's neurological processing, particularly when you're in beta, and you want to go into alpha, and and you're wanting to go into theta, want to go into delta, different various stages and deeper stages of the brain. Whatever your invocations are as you're falling asleep will be what the brain actually remembers as you drift into those deeper states of consciousness. So I love that. I talk about that in my class, Awakening the Shaman. How to do it. But insofar as my techniques, it depends upon, if I'm in puja. So I do puja, surprise. I'm an altar girl. I love altars. My favorite one right now is Hanuman, and and I just got a new being that I kind of put in my hallway outside, that there's going to be an altar in the front of my house and an altar in the back of my house. So I'm looking for altars at north, south, east, and west. So now I have north and south right now. So that's really, really good. So I'm just starting to create the altar, for a tiny little Buddha at the front of my house. And then there's a Hanuman at the south, because the south, Hanuman's a very powerful deity. So in my particular altar, Hanuman is actually inside of a bowl that's full of red sand from the desert. It's amazing. So I stick all my incense in there, and I have an offering for gratitude, an offering that I give Hanuman for gratitude, an offering that I give, for cleansing and purification of my thoughts and feelings that don't serve me. And then I have an offering for things that I need to call in. So it's like letting go and what doesn't serve, that's cleansing and purification, and then calling in, and then of course, gratitude and thanks for everything, even the stuff that I think that I need to let go. I'm grateful for that too. I'm grateful for all that. And I actually do the Hanuman Chalisa, when I'm doing that.
I love that. I love the Hanuman Chalisa.
So I do that about once a month. I don't do pujas very often. It's about time, actually, for me to do another puja. So it's a really interesting thing. So there's that. That's a deep way, is to do altar work. I do the one technique, which I taught you at the beginning and middle of this podcast. I do kriyas. And my kriyas, I follow the path of Kripa. So what that means is yoga of grace. So I call my yoga Kripa yoga, and it honors all limbs of traditional yoga. And it's everything, not just asana. There's a small portion of asana, less asana in my yoga than anything else. So I will generally do specific kriyas. All of those are listed on tier 2 of patreon.com/my name. Somebody's going to have to go in there and type in my name. So Pamela Aaralyn. Yeah. So all those kriyas are there. I do kriyas, and I do them quickly and efficiently. I have slow ones. I have tedious ones. I have fast ones. But I learned that after realization that it only takes a couple of minutes, so 30 seconds to 2 minutes for those kriyas to work. So I do really, really efficient, quick ones these days.
It's beautiful. And I think I'm from India, so I really, feel a connection with a lot of the Hindu gods. See Ganesh here, and that's something that you guys can also teach and dabble into yourself also. Understanding that Ganesh and Hanuman are very real. They're not mythological characters or just some statue. There's a way to invoke and ask for the guidance and assistance of Hanuman, of Ganesh. Ganesh is the destroyer of obstacles. So if there's some sort of blockage and you're like, oh, I don't know what to do, I ask Ganesh for help. And in natural language. And there's mantras also for that too. Just chanting is also paying homage to Ganesh and asking, give me that guidance and divine whispers, because I don't know how to plow through this. And in the Indian tradition, offering a little statue of Ganesh to someone else is also a very nice thing to do. You usually don't buy it for yourself in our tradition. Of course you can, there's no rule or anything, but it's also a nice thing to do to give it if you ever want to do that.
Yeah. The next question we have is, what is the best way or technique to be aware of underlying beliefs that you are unaware of that you can bring to the surface?
Meditation and talking to the higher self. So after or before meditating, ask your higher self to show you, am I holding on to something? Once again, I do this in dream state. I love dream state. For me, that's one of the most powerful things that I use. So for example, I will say before I go to bed, thinking that all's well, that I'm not holding on to anything, But because I'm on a quest to always clear things that I'm not even sure are, in my energetic system and I'm holding on to, I ask higher self, is there anything that I am identifying with that I've not been triggered because I haven't experienced it, but that doesn't serve my highest good? I ask for you to show me that in my dream state. And you are shown. You are shown, whether or not it's that night, whether or not it's absolutely crystal clear. It doesn't, you can't make demands on it either. So for me, I've sort of released the expectation and I'm always shown it. And one of the ways that you could be shown is through an experience. So for example, a dream could be a colossal fight with your mother, and you are screaming at her because of something. So in the dream, she could have taken something from you, or something could have happened and you lose your mind. Oh, what is that rage that you're holding on to? There's an opportunity to look into it. So we come here to explore, not to be given all the answers, but that is your clue. So my recommendation is connecting with the higher self and asking, because that is your best friend. My best friend is my higher self. End of story. And your higher self will always show you what you are holding on to, even if you think all is well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love what you said about releasing expectations and not putting demands upon the higher self. In many New Age teachings and theologies, it is taught that you are to be so specific, therefore your answer will be so specific. And what I find is that is ego inquiry. And you're setting yourself up for such an expectation that if you get something and the higher self gives you something and the ego is going to go, you guys know what I'm going to say. The ego goes, what? What does it say? What does that mean? Why is that happening? Well, how does that specifically apply to my life? So don't be so quick to give up on the process. It's the second thing, as people start out and they say to me as a spiritual teacher, well, I did what you suggested. I used your invocation to invoke the higher self. I used your invocation to meet angels. I used my invocation to meet my dominant spirit guide. And someone showed up, but how can I be sure if it's actually my spirit guide? Someone showed up, but they were like a part of a big crowd, but they were the ones that talked to me. How do I know that that was the one? Well, they talked to you, but they were like homeless and sad, and they were this and they were that. It wasn't a magical experience. I get these kind of things whenever people do inquiry and they come to me, and that's placing expectations on the nature of the content or the time frame of when you actually can receive the content for what it is and its greater good. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Expectation is huge. So how do you do that? You release expectation on yourself. Mm-hmm. Stop making demands on yourself. And this happens in the day-to-day, expecting a lot from yourself, going easy on yourself. Yeah. Just go easy, be gentle with ourselves, not so hard on ourselves. Things like, why did I do that? Oh, I shouldn't have done that. This is what I should do. Those little things add up. And then what are you going to do? You're going to place expectation onto others, onto your guides, onto the way it should be. And then your ego gets completely activated.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's like, well, if it was this, and that same client said to me in that storyline, well, if it was a spirit guide or an angel, shouldn't I have felt good? Shouldn't it have been a magical experience? Shouldn't it have made me feel high frequency? Maybe, but maybe not. What if that guide was there to pull you into a core belief that required resurfacing, to make you feel that so that you could cleanse it and be free of the suffering that it was causing in your life, that you were unaware of. So there's always that. Angels show up in disguise. They don't often, I rarely get a client come back to me when they do angelic invocations, my alchemy programs. I teach a lot of alchemy programs to students, and they're like, I did the angelic invocation and somebody showed up, looked like Morgan Freeman. He also looked homeless and he had on, Yeezy sneakers. I'm like, oh, wow. They were definitely going to get your attention that way. Because if an angel showed up with big, brilliant wings and golden stuff everywhere, you would have been like, oh, well, that was too good to be true. Like your ego would have done something with that too. So show up in a way that you can relate to.
Completely. They show up when you release the expectation, when you surrender, when you let go, when you give up. That's I find when the magic happens. I remember a long time ago, maybe 3 years ago or something like that. I remember I had a session with you and I was having a moment of, oh my God, I don't know what to do. It was really a raw moment. Those are the magical moments. And I told you that before I went to bed, I asked out loud for some assistance. And I was visited by Estrella, Divine Mother Estrella. And I saw her with my physical eyes. And that's not something that happens a lot. It's usually in a feeling or in a dream, but she's beautiful and angelic and blonde hair and these blue eyes and a big smile and very beautiful and angelic. But I didn't ask for it. Like I didn't know because I was in a moment of raw surrender.
Yeah.
And then I guess my guides and her figured this is the moment where this would be of best. It would serve her the best to see her in this form.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if it didn't, she would look like Morgan Freeman. You know? So it's sometimes whatever's in our best interest, whatever's for our greater good in that moment happens. You know?
Yeah, the end of What Dreams Will Come. I won't spoil it for you if you haven't. One of my favorite movies of all time. And the guy that he was expecting was not what he got, and then he found out later why. So yeah, incredible. Well, guys, we have to get going for now so that I can go do the mom thing. Thank you for joining us, Robina. Can you tell them again how they can reach you for individual sessions?
Yes, you can just go to my website, robinadhindsa.com, or you can just send me a message, my name on Instagram or Facebook. So you have any questions or anything, I'm reachable.
Yeah. And for any of these techniques, you can find them listed. Patreon is incredible. It's one of these services that gives you for, I think, like $33. You can get access to all those techniques and deeper ones under the Kripa Yoga 2 classes. And you look at the tag there. And you can find all these techniques and more there on my Patreon channel at patreon.com/Pamela Aaralyn. So when you go there, any of those techniques that we talked about are just there, and just so many more. So that's one way to do it. And insofar as individual mentorships and any kind of sessions, any kind of readings, you can find me at PamelaAaralyn.com. And again, Robina and I are going to be doing a class about shame. And how to clear it, how to be aware of it, and how to clear it, and what beliefs are associated with it, and everybody's common day experience. This class will speak to everyone, no matter what level people say about your spiritual awakening. I don't even relate to that term very well, but if you're awake or not, like if you just stumbled across this YouTube and you're having problems in the workplace, you're having, your boss shames you all the time and you can barely stand to go in another day, this class is for you. So you can find that class coming up, not this Saturday, but next. So keep an eye in the evening. I'm not sure what time we're going to do it, but I know it'll be like around, the evening time. So we'll be posting those times later for you. Okay. And we will see you then. Thank you, Robina.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining. It was beautiful.
All right. Over and out.